Allow yourself to feel the good and the bad without labeling it as good and bad, which I know is hard because that's what we do here. We label everything as good, bad, acceptable, unacceptable, when really everything just is. It just is what it is.
The damn sky that Sydney wanted to look at so bad. It was not letting me sleep. I can't sleep because of this fucking sky right here, man. It better be beautiful.
Look how beautiful it is!
We are in Chicago. I'm on my layover on my way to Alabama. My flight got delayed until 3 o'clock, so that's okay. I got to kind of like walk around a bookstore for a little bit, got myself some food, which I wasn't planning on eating until I got there. Now I get the opportunity to sit and talk with you and get all of my thoughts out. I gotta pull up my notes, hold on. Hopefully you guys can hear me too. I don't wanna be yelling since I'm in the airport and I don't want everybody hearing me. So I feel like in my first video, obviously I touched on what is presence, what does it mean? I said that to me, presence means being aware of yourself and your world, like your surroundings. Even though that is true, I also believe that it's being aware of yourself and your surroundings in the moment, like on a moment by moment basis. The ironic thing about being present is if you're acknowledging your presence, then you're not actually present in that moment. Like when you're truly present, there is no thought, there is no analysis, there is no opinion or specific realization about what it is that you're in the present moment with. And the moment that you start to analyze it or label it is the moment that you're stepping outside of presence, which is okay, right? Like in the world that we live in, it's very unrealistic to expect that anybody is going to be completely present 100% of the time. Again, unless you want to go live in a temple, which you probably don't. I thought that since I was talking about wanting to share my journey with spirituality in a practical sense, I thought what better time for me to share some of the things that I've done in order to practice more presence than while I'm in the airport. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I do that have helped me create more of a consistent practice of presence in my life, or at least things that I've done throughout my journey that have gotten me to where I am now, practicing more presence on a daily basis. Most of these practices, these things that I'm going to suggest that you try, are things that might not help in the exactly moment to moment right away, but they're things that as you do them over time and build up that level of awareness, because again, these things help you build awareness of self, It will help you in the future when you are in the middle of an experience that is anxiety inducing or is pulling you out of yourself when you really want to practice being present, right? So the first one, therapy. Therapy. I know there's such a cliche around therapy, especially in minority communities, Black and brown communities. A lot of people don't think that therapy is worth investing in. It is. It absolutely is. When I first started therapy, my therapist was not that great. Sorry, it's so loud. I was going to see a woman who wasn't fully certified, who was constantly trying to like throw coping methods at me and practices at me, which was great. But at the time, I really just needed to talk and like get things off my chest. She also was a white woman, so I don't think she really could fully empathize with my experience, specifically at that time in my life where I was really developing my sense of identity around being me, being a mixed Black woman. And so I didn't really feel like the therapy was effective. I started going to another therapist almost a year ago now. Her name is Hannah, and my experience with her has been literally completely transformative. Obviously, at that point, I had already started doing a lot of work on my own that made the work that I was doing with Hannah even better. I just really enjoyed the way that Hannah does her practice. And so the trick with therapy is being willing to go through the trial and error of finding a therapist that works for you. And then I promise once you do that, having that consistent help, that consistent guidance through your journey will help you navigate your healing journey, your growth journey, your presence journey, your whatever journey much better. Okay, so the second one is meditation. And I'm laughing because if you talk to anybody who knows me, I am constantly telling people to meditate. Like, I stand by meditation wholeheartedly. I'm such an advocate for meditation because meditation really helped me like so much. I started meditating like consistently about 3 years ago. And it was because I was just something about it felt really good. I think giving myself the permission to sit in quiet and just either let myself think or let myself breathe and not be concerned with where I need to go in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes or what needs to be done. After maybe a few weeks, I started meditating like several times a day. And I don't do that anymore. Now I meditate about 1 time a day, and some days I don't even meditate, which I'm working on. But the gift that meditation has given me, and the reason why I recommend it to literally everybody I talk to, is meditation taught me to observe my thoughts. And if you're like me, I overanalyze a lot. It's what I do. It makes me feel safe. It's like my coping mechanism. Meditating has helped me create a space where I observe these thoughts, and over time, I recognize the patterns in my thoughts. And I really didn't understand how much of a blessing this was until I started being able to notice my patterns in my habits, my patterns in my life, like my daily life as things were unfolding. It helped me develop such an awareness of myself that I was able to look at the different aspects of my life and identify, first of all, that I was the reason that they were playing out the way that they were, which helped me stop blaming other people, but then also identify the things that I was doing to create the circumstances of my life that I didn't want to continue with, which eventually led to me being able to make conscious decisions to change those circumstances. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, when it comes to meditation, think that it's about clearing your mind, not thinking at all. When really, I think of it as allowing your thoughts to pass like cars on a highway, right? Like as a car passes, you notice it, you observe it, maybe you even have a thought about it, but then you just let it go. Now, this is easier said than done, and it's something that obviously comes with practice, but again, the more you do it, the more you will observe those thoughts, the more you will see the patterns in your thoughts, and eventually it will lead to you seeing how those thoughts contribute to your habits, which contribute to your circumstances. And the next one that I wanted to talk about is journaling. It essentially does the same thing that meditation does, but it's on paper. I feel like the act of writing is an act of release. And as you're writing your thoughts down and then you go back and read them, again, you become aware of those thought patterns. But also something about writing on the paper and getting those thoughts out kind of lets your defenses down. And that's when you start seeing that, or that's when you start writing down things that you weren't even aware of before. It's when you really start to tap into your mind and your subconscious. And it also helps you kind of get it out of your head. And you can do this with prompts online. Like you can find shadow work prompts online. You can come up with your own prompts. I think of these questions that I want to ask myself. And so then I'll write it at the top of my notebook and then I'll just start answering it. Or you can also just free write. Just start writing whatever's on your mind. With the flow of writing, it takes that pressure out of my mind. It takes all of the energy out of my head and releases it onto the paper. I also wanted to add that in the moments that I've had the biggest breakthroughs or made the biggest shifts in my habits or beliefs, it always came at a time when I was consistently meditating and journaling at the same time. Not like in the same moment, but meaning that I was getting up every morning, I was meditating on my mat and then journaling right after. And it's not like I was doing any specific transcendental meditation or journaling any specific shadow work prompts. It was just the act of showing up and doing those two practices every day forced me to remain aware of my mind, my subconscious, my thoughts, my habits, all of it, and hold myself to the new beliefs, new habits, new thought patterns that I wanted to integrate. But if journaling is not your thing, if you don't like writing, you can also do voice memos in your phone, on your computer, getting a camera and talking to a camera, or also just doing mirror work, like sitting in front of a mirror and having that conversation with yourself can also be really helpful. I still think journaling, like writing, is probably the most effective, but again, that's a personal opinion. So try it all. Try and see whatever works best for you. So the next one that I wrote down is mindfulness. And the concept of mindfulness was introduced to me back when I was in college and I was really struggling with anxiety, and I joined this like group situation, a mindfulness group, and it was like 10 of us and we sat in a room and we practiced mindfulness. And I don't really remember much about that class, but except for this one day where we all came in, we sat in a circle, the instructor handed each of us a raisin. And she told us to first look at the raisin, to feel the raisin, to look at all of its wrinkles, the color, feel the texture. Then she told us to put it in our mouths and just to like feel it on our tongues, how it tasted before we bit into it. And then to chew the raisin, see how it felt, right? How the taste changed when we were chewing it versus when we were just holding it in our mouths and then swallowing it. I think of that exercise as a good template for what I mean by mindfulness. For me, it means doing one thing at a time and consciously tapping into your senses while you're doing it. So you can do it while you're eating, while you're walking, while you're sitting in an airport. You can do it pretty much when you're doing anything. It doesn't have to be, again, like meditation in the sense of like sitting in silence. It's a practice of being present with whatever it is you're observing in that moment. And then I wrote down objective observation. And this is mindfulness too, but it's mindfulness on a bigger scale rather than like chewing on food. It's focusing on the people around you, your surroundings, and taking note of them. Something I started doing was looking people in their eyes when I'm passing them on the street, looking at their face and taking note of the characteristics of their face or the outfit that they're wearing, just noticing small details. So then also observing yourself. And the reason I say objective is because the point of doing this is not to form opinions. It's not to judge yourself or to judge other people. It's simply to take note of what you're observing. And so in moments of peace, in joy and love, how that feels in your body, where you feel it most in your body, what smells are around you in that moment, what you're hearing in that moment. Is it your loved one talking to you that is creating joy? But then also taking note in moments of pain, in moments of sadness and anxiety, seeing where that feeling lives in your body. Thoughts are provoking that anxiety and that fear. What in your outward experience is provoking that fear and that anxiety. Not being so quick to try and change it or run away from it or to make yourself feel better, just feeling it. And that one I think is really hard. It's something that I fall into all the time, where I might have a negative observation about something and then I'll immediately try to change my perspective on it. I'm learning to stop doing that and to just kind of acknowledge that observation. Allow yourself to feel the good and the bad without labeling it as good and bad, which I know is hard because that's what we do here. We label everything as good, bad, acceptable, unacceptable, when really everything just is. It just is what it is. And the last one that I put on here is breathing, breath work. There are so many different breath work practices that you can try that can literally help you in the moment whenever you're feeling anxious or fearful or sad or whatever. One thing I like to do is count down backwards from 10 or count down backwards from 5. Something about that like decline kind of helps me come to a sense of resolution, a sense of calm. And that's just one that I can think of in this moment, but there's tons of breathwork exercises all online in different religions, practices that people have been doing for centuries. There is absolutely a mind-body connection that gets reestablished when you are breathing deeply. A lot of us tend to have very shallow breaths. And so even the practice of just breathing all the way in and breathing all the way out. Breathing helps reestablish that mind-body connection. Yoga is such a great practice, and I'm not a yoga expert. Finding different yoga practices are great ways to tap into your body. And honestly, any grounding exercise is really great for tapping into presence, whether it's going outside and sitting on the ground with your bare feet and hands, or leaning up against a tree, being in the sun. And you can do everything that I mentioned, you can do anytime, anywhere, and it can still be very effective. And again, have grace for yourself. Understand that this is a practice. It's not going to change your life tomorrow. But the more you do it over time, the more you will be able to observe yourself, your thoughts, your awareness, your surroundings in moment-to-moment spaces, and also develop a stronger level of presence. So I hope that that makes sense. Please let me know down below in the comments if there's anything you want me to expand on or do future videos about. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with somebody who you think would really benefit from this. And stay tuned for part 3, where I kind of show you guys, like literally show you guys what I've been doing in my life in this new space of practicing presence. Thank you guys. Bye. You can also do voice memos. I came over here in this corner because I thought I was going to be really quiet. I think a lot of people